The story of the Sunshine Skyway Bridge disaster begins long before the morning of May 9, 1980, because to understand the full weight of what happened, one must first understand the bridge itself, the weather that shaped the catastrophe, the decisions that lined up in the hours before impact, and the innocent people whose lives intersected with a tragedy that unfolded with terrifying speed. The original Sunshine Skyway Bridge, a massive steel cantilever structure stretching across Tampa Bay in Florida, had opened in the 1950s as a symbol of engineering ambition, connecting St. Petersburg to Manatee County across waters that were both beautiful and notoriously unpredictable. Drivers crossing the bridge looked out upon wide blue expanses, commercial vessels, fishing boats, and the slow movement of tides cutting through the bay, never imagining that the very structure beneath their tires would one day collapse under violently unexpected circumstances. By the late 1970s, the bridge carried thousands of vehicles every day, and because it also crossed a major shipping lane, enormous vessels constantly passed beneath it, relying on tight navigation channels to maneuver through shallow, shifting waters. The bridge was strong, but it had a vulnerability. If a sufficiently large ship veered even slightly off course, the towering support piers stood exposed to catastrophic impact, protected only by fender systems that, while useful, were never designed to withstand the force of a fully loaded 20,000-ton cargo ship driving directly into them. On the night of May 8 leading into the early morning of May 9, 1980, the weather in the region took a dramatic turn as a violent storm system swept into the Gulf of Mexico. This system produced torrential rain, rapidly shifting winds, and thick, disorienting fog that reduced visibility to almost nothing. At the port of Tampa, the MV Summit Venture, a 608-foot-long Taiwanese cargo ship captained by 37-year-old pilot John Laro, prepared to make its way through the bay. Laro was experienced, respected, and well-trained in navigating Tampa's difficult channels, but that morning the storm was intensifying, slashing sheets of rain sideways and covering the bay in a suffocating gray haze. Nevertheless, outgoing and incoming ships continued to move, and at around 7:30 a.m., the Summit Venture began heading toward the Skyway shipping channel with Laro at the helm. The winds, which had started at manageable speeds, surged above 50 miles per hour, creating a powerful crosswind effect that pushed against the massive hull of the ship. Laro ordered course corrections repeatedly, fighting to keep the vessel centered in the narrow channel, but every adjustment was countered by violent gusts and blinding rain. The harbor radar system, which might have helped, had limited visibility in such conditions. Visibility from the ship's bridge shrank from poor to almost zero, making it nearly impossible to see channel markers that, under clear skies, would have been unmistakable. Instead of green water and sunlit horizon, the crew saw only walls of gray, and the ship moved forward almost blind. As the vessel neared the Skyway Bridge, a moment arrived where everything aligned disastrously. A sudden blast of wind, measured at nearly hurricane force levels, slammed the Summit Venture from the port side, pushing the ship sharply toward the bridge's support piers. Laro attempted emergency maneuvers, ordering the engines full astern, but a ship that huge cannot stop on command. It carried too much momentum, and the storm robbed Laro of the seconds he desperately needed. Through the sheets of rain, the silhouette of the bridge loomed, too close, too massive, and inescapable. At 7:33 a.m., with the crew screaming warnings and Laro bracing himself, the Summit Venture's bow collided directly with the southern support pier of the main span of the Sunshine Skyway Bridge. The impact was catastrophic. The pier crumpled. The roadway above trembled, cracked, and within seconds a 1,200-foot section of the bridge collapsed, falling into the turbulent waters below like a chain of metal and concrete dominoes. Highway guardrails twisted and snapped, and the yellow lines marking the road abruptly ended into open sky. The collapse was so sudden that drivers approaching it had no warning. They couldn't see the gap. The storm was too thick, the rain too heavy, the grayness too total. Vehicles traveling at highway speed drove straight into emptiness and plunged nearly 150 feet into the bay. In those horrifying moments immediately after the collapse, silence existed only for a heartbeat before screams. Metal tearing, engines roaring, and shattering glass filled the air. The first vehicle to go over was a Greyhound bus carrying 26 people, including commuters, workers, students, and families. The bus driver, Sir Bud Couch, had no reason to believe the road ahead was gone. He drove forward until the ground simply disappeared beneath him. The bus fell in a near-vertical drop, hitting the water with a force so severe that it crushed the windows inward and sent a wave of water surging through the cabin. No one inside survived. Behind the bus, cars, trucks, and even a pickup pulling a boat trailer continued unknowingly toward the missing span. One after another, they dropped into the bay. 6 cars, the bus, and a truck, all vanishing into the dark waters in the middle of a storm that worked against rescue efforts. Many victims never saw the water coming. Some had only moments of realization. Some might have braked but could not stop in time. The fall was almost certainly fatal for most even before they reached the waves. But amidst devastation, one of the most haunting and miraculous moments of the disaster took place. A single survivor, 23-year-old Warren Butch Chapman, lived after falling from the collapsed roadway. Chapman had been driving a pickup truck towing a boat. When his truck went over the edge, the boat trailer behind him swung downward first, hitting the water in such a way that it acted like a deadly but cushioning buffer. The impact was still enormous. He fractured bones, tore muscles, and was thrown violently from the vehicle. But the twisted wreckage of the boat kept him from being crushed or trapped underwater. Dazed, injured, and barely conscious, he floated amid debris until rescuers pulled him out. He was the only person to survive the fall from the broken bridge that day. At the top of the bridge, a different kind of bravery unfolded. State Trooper William Bill DeYoung, racing toward the scene unaware of the scale of destruction, slammed his brakes just in time as the fog revealed that the road in front of him ended abruptly. He was mere feet from death. Shocked but alive, he immediately reversed, blocked oncoming traffic with his patrol car, and ran into the storm screaming for approaching vehicles to stop. His actions prevented additional deaths. Without him, dozens more would have driven unknowingly off the edge. Meanwhile, the crew of the Summit Venture desperately radioed authorities, calling for immediate rescue operations. Helicopters, Coast Guard vessels, and emergency units launched into conditions nearly impossible for search and recovery. Waves were churning, rain hammered down, and lightning flashed across the sky. Divers entered water clouded with silt, debris, and twisted steel. Sea currents pushed wreckage deeper. The storm made it almost impossible to see more than a few feet underwater. One by one, bodies were found, vehicles brought to the surface, and names identified, leading to the final toll of 35 deaths. Every rescue worker recalled the same feeling. The silence that followed the storm felt as heavy as the tragedy itself. In the days that followed, Captain John Laro, devastated, stunned, and emotionally crushed, was placed under intense investigation. He insisted he had done everything possible, and meteorologists later confirmed that the storm produced unprecedented, unpredictable microbursts of wind that could overpower any ship pilot's skill. Though Laro was initially blamed by the public, eventually all criminal charges were dropped because experts agreed the disaster was caused by sudden, extreme weather, not negligence. Laro lived the rest of his life carrying the weight of a tragedy he could never forget. The destroyed section of the Skyway Bridge remained a twisted, shocking reminder of the disaster until engineers designed a replacement. The modern Sunshine Skyway Bridge, a graceful cable-stayed structure completed in 1987 with massive concrete pier protection systems capable of withstanding direct ship impact. The new bridge stands today not just as an architectural marvel but as a solemn response to a day of unimaginable loss. Beneath its span rests a memorial to the 35 lives taken suddenly and violently by the forces of nature, human vulnerability, and tragic circumstance. The story of the Sunshine Skyway Bridge disaster lives on as one of the most shocking transportation catastrophes in American history. A haunting reminder of how a single moment can change everything, and how the calm beauty of a place can forever hide the memory of a day when sky, sea, steel, and storm collided in a tragedy that no one saw coming.